to this computer. All right. So Leslie and I are going to look at this MR. We'll see. It might not even take us the full hour, but we're pretty good at using up time. I'm closing out all of the docs changes. And so basically what happened is I made this change and I thought, okay, the main places we're checking for membership are in our policies, right? Which is like the primary way that authorization is accessed in GitLab is through these policy classes. If you ever want to Google it, the framework we use is called declarative policy, which is a homegrown GitLab library. There's a gem. Is that true? Yeah, there's a gem for it. There's a gem for it. I should release a new version of that gem soon. This reminded me. Maybe we can look at that after this. Yeah, that gem is technically owned by the authorization team, which I used to be on. So I have some things that I should take care of in there. Anyways, so policy classes removed all that. I got reviews from people on the team. And then Gosha pointed out that we also had an authorization, or we also had a membership check, excuse me, in the GraphQL mutation. So let me do a quick show you. I actually removed this line that checks if the current user is a member of the resource parent for the object, and none of the tests failed. So I was like, ooh, that's not good. But we actually did have a test for a user who is not a member. The diff looks all messed up now because I've been messing with it. But we did have a test that made sure that this error was raised when the user was not a member. And so to me, what that says is just that the test was set up incorrectly. Something in the test setup was not actually exercising what we thought it was. So I was trying to fix that, and that's what I'm kind of in the middle of now when we started this pairing. And so you can see I've moved the things around in this diff. But I think the reason that it wasn't actually working as we expected was because there was this call and call original. So we're stubbing ability allowed, and we're saying, okay, this user can read the resource, but they're not a member. We haven't added them as a member anywhere. And so the person who wrote this test expected that to go there. But I think this it was causing a problem. Anyways, let's look into it because now I've created a bunch of failures, so that's super fun. So it looks like the failure I'm getting is on raised resource not available error. That's on line 38. And oh, interesting. Okay. So this is actually not the test that I updated. So I wonder what's going on here. It's definitely an authorization error. It's saying the resource you're attempting to access does not exist. You don't have permissions. So it's a shared example on line 261. Let's check this out. Oh, okay. It's being called here. That makes sense. And then the actual, so it's in that example group, but the actual example is which one? I guess it's in this name. Mutations resolve when explained vulnerabilities input is set behaves like an AI action when the user can perform the AI action. When LM execute method errors out. Let's look for that. There we go. So in this scenario, it's getting an error. I probably just messed up the nesting because I moved stuff around. So here, we add the user as a developer up here. And I think maybe this expects this test down here expects the user to be a member. And so it's not airing properly. I'm just gonna look at the version of this that we have on master really quick. Sometimes that helps me understand. Sometimes I have a hard time like reading diffs locally, if that makes any sense. So I'm gonna look for execute method service. So in this is, oh, look, yeah. So in this context, yeah, this is inside of this context here. The user is a member. So yeah, I messed up the nesting as I suspected. So when the user is a member, so let's just take this end, this all should go in here. Okay, I tried to auto indent that and it didn't work. Let me try again. Okay, so now this user is being added as a developer up here. We're running this test, which is like the success case. And then we're saying when the resource is null. It's kind of weird to say that the resource is null in the context of, like, I think this, we shouldn't say, we should take this outside of the context, because why would you say resource is null? Like, how can the user belong to something that doesn't exist? So let's put that down here. Okay, I think that goes on its own. This is a problem when you have these huge test files. They get really hard to read. Yeah, okay. And then this was the test that I added or adapted, which is just the user is not a member and they can view the resource and they should be able to do stuff, do the right thing, do the action. Yeah, I don't love how our AI authorization stuff is kind of sprinkled all over. It makes it a little bit difficult to understand it because nowhere in here, let me just watch this. Okay, good, that's passing. Great. So nowhere in here do we check that the user has access to AI features actually, which is what surprised me. So this is the GraphQL AI action mutation. And we check for these feature flags. We check if they can read the object. And that's it. And then I think something in the execute method service maybe checks if they have access to AI features, like a seat, a do a pro seat, or access VM group membership. But it's a little bit like, why is there this is here and this is here and this is here? Like it should all be together ideally. I was just gonna look at the execute method service to see how that works. Okay, so we don't do anything in here that checks access, but this really just calls different service. So for the case of chat, for example, okay, chat service. What does chat do? Yeah, it says user can access Duo chat. So that's where we're really doing the check that the user has access to AI features. But then you ask yourself, like, why then do we check for the AI Duo chat switch here and here, right? Like, I guess because we stopped the action earlier if we check it here, but then maybe we could just not check it in the service. So I don't know. It's not horrible to check feature flags multiple times, but I feel like we do that a lot and it makes things confusing. Okay. You're like, where do I really need to check it? Okay, so that one thing I want to do before we move forward is just re-add in this membership check and make sure that my test fails. Mutations AI action. What line is it on? It's in the authorized resource method. Okay. Cool. So now I would expect some failures because I have, oh, what's happening here? Oh, this doesn't like my, this is not my syntax. That's fine. I would expect a failure because I re-added the membership check and we don't want that. Please fail. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, awesome. Cool. That's good. Sweet. I check everything in. Remove membership check. GraphQL. Awesome. Just gonna go back to that MR. Thanks, good shot and good catch. And I usually like to just link people to the specific commit because then they can just view the diff. Did I actually push this? Yes, okay. Okay, I think that is everything. I think I can make this acronym happen.
Yeah, I think so.
Plat Patala. Patala. Okay, and then I can use that. This actually is new, this re-request review thing. I don't actually know what it does to click that, but I find it satisfying. Great. Would you want to look? So let's go back to the master branch. Would you want to look at potentially consolidating those feature flag checks that we just looked at that were repetitive?
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think that anything you have like that that you see in the code, we have a lot of new people, me and other new backend engineers. So just
Yeah.
let us know because you had that RSpec thing that you asked me to do, and that was actually really good because it was really small and easy, but I feel like I got familiar with stuff with that. So
Okay,
anything
cool.
like that, yeah, just if you can keep an eye out, that would be great.
Yeah, well, and would you want to pair on this on your machine so that you're like more driving and I can be talking through it, or would you rather stay on my machine? What do you think?
Um, hmm. Uh, I guess I guess we could stay on your machine. You can show me like how you would look through all the code and kind of like trace it because I think my
Okay.
method might be a bit disorganized because I'm used to working on a lot smaller code base too. That's the other thing. So it's kind of hard
Yeah.
to trace it through sometimes. So I'm just curious how you do that.
Yeah. Okay, that's totally fine. Yeah, and I mean the code base, like I feel like one thing that happens to me a lot in the GitLab code base, when something's really confusing, I just end up looking through the Git history to understand exactly when that was added and why. And so, sometimes you get to the diff and there is no reason given and you just have to go. But sometimes you see, oh, they did have a reason, and maybe that reason doesn't even matter anymore. And my guess here is just that these different pieces of the puzzle have evolved over time, and there wasn't really a focus on what's the word? Like consolidating, right? It's a cleanup thing. So I think we can probably just move forward, but let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. So I've opened a new branch so that we should have a clean Git status now. Yes, we do. And so what I noticed here is that inside the GraphQL AI action, we're checking for these global feature flags being enabled. And then we're also checking if the user can like read the object. And then over here in the actual service that's called by this AI action, right? Which is, it's a little, there's a lot of meta programming too, I feel like in all of our AI stuff that gets really confusing. But basically, LLM execute service ends up routing to this chat service if it's a chat request, right? All of our different AI features use the same AI app. Like this GraphQL mutation is like what we call the abstraction layer. Oh, and it's when we have a party. But this is what we call the abstraction layer. I don't know if you heard, if you like in the docs, we're like, we have an abstraction layer, and the abstraction layer is basically this file plus related code where we say, okay, we're using the same GraphQL mutation for everything, but based on what kind of question comes in, we will send you to the correct kind of logic. So, and let's look at another one of these services too, actually. Let's just see as an example. So explain code, for example. Oh, interesting. This one's supering up to base service. Let's look at base service. Let's see what, oh, interesting. This is another layer of authorization. So in the base service, we have a valid method, and valid is called by execute, which then calls perform. So I guess, yeah, we're calling execute up here, and execute looks at valid and it says, is this authorizer? Is this allowed? Oh, and I find authorizer to be so confusing, actually. Alejandro was working with this authorizer class last week, and it was like turning my brain upside down. And then we also look for membership here. We might have just discovered another place we have to update because, yeah, okay. Let's see, this was good. Okay, so we have to go back to the other branch. Because in the chat service is not overriding valid at all, right? So the base service valid is what's being used, and that's calling, that returns false if they're not authorized or if they're not a member. Okay, wow, this is huge. This is huge. Okay, let's go back to the branch. Sorry. We're not done. We're not done with the other feature. What is that branch called? Move membership. Okay. Okay. Load. Redraw. My screen's a little messy here. Okay, so we got to deal with this. So why did the tests we just update not catch this? Let's take a gander at what was it? It was a GraphQL spec, wasn't it?
So
Yeah, this one. Okay, here we go. I think this didn't catch it because we're calling execute service. Okay, let's put a pry in there and just see what we get to. So I'm gonna put a pry right here and see if we're even getting there in this test. So this is a user who is a member. I want to go to the scenario of user is not a member. And it will annoyingly run this 4 times because it's in a shared sample group, but it's fine. Can you see my screen, by the way? I can make it bigger or brighter or something.
Oh, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, great. So it never got to my pry. Why would that be? Execute method service. Execute method service calls all methods list. Okay, what's this? So this is methods. Yeah. Okay, let's put it right here. See what happens in here. I think we're just stubbing too much and it's like not actually calling the chat service, which is fine. But it's funny because I know like, well, let me ask you, like, what are your thoughts on stubbing in tests?
Well, in my last job, we did it quite a bit, and it usually ended up fine, I guess. I'm not like the most experienced dev. I have maybe like a year and a half with Ruby and Rails. So for me, it's been fine so far, but I feel like I haven't really seen the full scope of what could go wrong, I guess.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's like, I think, yeah, I feel like there's like early days of development when you don't know anything about stubbing, like you're learning RSpec, and then like you get to like intermediate RSpec and you're like, oh, I can stub things. Like that's cool. And then I think there's also like the people who want really fast tests, right? If you really want fast tests and you want to just be testing one thing, then it makes sense to stub everything else because it just makes it go away. You know, it's like not a factor. Um, but then the problem can be situations like this where you maybe think that you're testing kind of the full code path, but you're really not. Like you need it, basically you need integration tests somewhere. And I think if you stub too much, you can cause more problems than you fix, is what I found. So, because as you saw, I just had to bind it up right here and it's not even getting there. Oh, because yeah, I wasn't really reading this properly before. So this is expect next instance to receive, execute, and return this. So we're completely stubbing out the response. We're not even calling execute in this. So that makes sense. Why we're not getting there. I understand. Are you familiar with the syntax, hopefully, the expect next instance of?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't always see this as much. I usually use the like allow blah blah
Yeah.
blah to receive new, but expect next instance of, I guess. Right. Okay, so some ideas I have. One, we could update the AI action mutation to not stub this out. Um, I don't really know how difficult that would be because, you know, ultimately this service does various things. I don't know if we want all those things to happen. I guess the other thing we could do is we can see what tests there are for the LLM service classes themselves and update those because those probably hopefully have test coverage for the membership piece.
Yeah. That,
So let's
that sounds good.
okay. So spec services, LLM. Let's look at chat service. I'm just going to look for the word member first. The word member does not show up in here. So I'm going to, let me just run this full file and make sure it's green. Should be because we haven't made any changes yet. Come on, little buddy. Ooh. Awesome. Okay, so it's green. So now what I would do next is just see if we have test coverage for this at all, right? So I'm just going to comment out the line that I want to get rid of, which is in base class. And run that again and see if anything fails. I really hope something fails because I'd always rather work with test coverage that I already have than none, but
Yeah.
might not be there. And it's also, I just commented this out in the base class. It's possible that it's tested like for some of the other classes that inherit from base class or something and not for chat.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see. Wah, wah, no test coverage. Okay. That's good to know. Next, I'm just gonna see if we have any test coverage for the beep service. We do. Okay, so this looks pretty basic. It looks like we basically, oh, look, we do have a membership check, it seems, or at least access. So I'm gonna run this and I would expect this to fail. That's good. I have kind of mixed feelings on like the unit testing of base service because it's like we only use it to inherit from, but I guess
Yeah.
it's like one test rather than 10. Please fail. Darn. Okay. Oh, we don't have any test covers for this in there either. Great. Um, so if we want to be good people, oh, sorry, you're saying?
I was just like, how does that happen? Because like I thought on GitLab, it was supposed to have 100% test coverage or something like that. So how does
It
that have not tested?
it's well, I think first of all, the test coverage like tool we use, I think we use RSpec under coverage is not perfect. So sometimes it will think there's test coverage for something simply because the tests go to that line of code and exercise it. So we probably have lines of code, like we have lines of code that go to line 27. So it's considered covered by tests, but we don't have any expectations in our tests around what happens when it does hit that line of code.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I was just wondering because I encountered something like that too. I'm like, how did this even work in the first place? You know?
Yeah. I mean, the other way that happens is that we do have a label called RSpec skip under coverage that you can add to an MR. And sometimes if you're in a big rush on something, which has happened in the past and hopefully happens less often in the future with all of this work on AI features, um, we'll kind of say, well, there's some test coverage, it's not perfect. So because usually if under coverage is red, you can't merge it, which I'm sure you've noticed, but you can skip that step with the skip label. And so, I definitely have applied that label at least a handful of times at GitLab just because I'm trying, like we're trying to get something in by tomorrow and it's like we just don't have time to write the tests. So I don't think that's a great thing to do, but it does happen.
Okay, cool. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know this is where it's weird, like in terms of the under coverage not catching issues or lack of coverage. Especially, we had a really good pairing session. I'll find the recording for you. We had a really good pairing session where somebody was like showing me how you can generate the under coverage report and actually view it locally so you can see exactly how much coverage we have for certain classes. So that would be another good like beginner to the team task would be to go through the classes, like the areas of the code that we own and find under coverage and just close those gaps. That would be really awesome. So I can make sure I follow up on that. Let me write myself a note on the piece of paper I don't have. Okay, I'll do it later. art on my hand. And Leslie recording. But yeah, I'm sure we have under coverage in places. So yeah, we don't have any coverage on this. So let's add it, shall we?
Yeah.
Great. So it looks like we have this block when user has access. And let's just add one above it. When user has no access. And I'm gonna say when
There's one on 71 that
oh, you're right. Huh. When
with
user has no access. Okay. Oh, you're right. That's already there. Okay, so we can say context when user. What it is really is context when user has access as a non-member, right? So they can view the thing, but they aren't a member of it.
yeah.
And this is, there are two ways to do this. One would be to stub the ability and just say they can read it. The other would be to the other would be to actually change the visibility level of the project itself. So I think behaves like authorizing a resource. I don't know what this authorizing a resource is. I'm just gonna search for that and see. Oh, it's in there on line 45. Oh, this is another stubbing situation. Expect authorizer to receive resource and return authorizer response. And this is a good name for what this is. It behaves like authorizing a resource. It doesn't really. Oh, here. Resource is not authorized. I see. So it stubs out allowed. This says success when implemented. Okay. So I think I'm just going to use this shared example for the test we're adding right now. So we're going to say it behaves like authorizing a resource. I'm just going to steal that. And I'm going to say before do. And then I'm going to, I think the project, sorry, I'm kind of thinking out loud here and being like really herky-jerky. I'm not sure if this user can view this project, but I suppose it doesn't really matter because we're using this utils authorizer class, which I always forget what this thing does. Oh yeah, this is the class that I hate. Okay. So this class, I simply can't understand this code, even though it's valid. It's just my brain like can't process it. So this does a lot of things. The first is if there's no resource or user, so unless resource and user are both present, it basically says like, nope, you can't do anything, which makes sense. If the resource passed in is a user, it does something. Otherwise, it looks at whether the user can read the resource, right? Which is, we want to keep that in there. And then if that's allowed, then we just say, if it's not allowed, then we return this false thing. Then if they can view it, we get the authorization container, which uses the container method, which is up here. And if the user can access Duo features in that container, then we say, okay, cool. It's true. You can do this. Now, dare we go further down the pipeline and look at where access Duo features is called? But I'm pretty sure that also calls other stuff. So here's 705. 705. If they can read the group, then and Duo features are enabled, which looks at whether the settings are correct. Then it says access Duo features. So over here on the right, we're checking. Oh, over here, we're checking if they can read it, read the resource. And then we're again checking if they can read it up here on line 705. But I guess it's for the parent. So it could be, for example, an issue. So we want to make sure they can both read the issue and then also like read the parent of the issue, if that makes any sense. Which would be a project. Oh, yeah. It's a little, this in my view is complicated. I don't think we should solve that right now, but I really think it should be easier to read this code. Like, do you feel like this is complicated, or do you feel like all of the code at GitLab is complicated and this is just another example of complex code?
I muted myself for some reason. Yeah, I'm kind of in that stage to be honest, but yeah, I mean, it does seem kind of complicated to me, but I don't really have the context, I guess, too.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, and to be fair, it is all somewhat complex. And some of this is like stylistic, but so it's hard to say that it's like definitively like this is readable code and this is unreadable code, right? Because we're all just people reading it and different things make sense to different people. But I think we could be doing better here in the authorizer class. Just I found every time I look at the class, I feel like I walk through every line. I'm like, what does this mean? Okay, what does this mean? Okay, which is like
Yeah.
too much. All right, so where were we? We're trying to run a test. So user has access as a non-member. So what I really want to make sure of is that they can view the resource. And so let me just run this really quickly and see if I think it's going to fail by default, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Oh, cool. Expected a service response to be truthy, but it got false. And I think that's because well, actually this authorizer is stubbed out. So I think it's probably this. I'm gonna put it probably here and up here. Run that test again. see if it's the same problem as before. We're stubbing too much, so we're not even getting to the code that we think we're getting to. Yay, we got to the first one. Okay. So resource, we have a resource, which is that issue. Is this allowed? Cool. Returning true, which makes sense. Okay, we got to the next one. So now we want to say AI integration enabled. True. User consent to AI. False. Okay, so that's the condition that we need to work with. I don't know what's happening here, so let's go look at that. So user consent to AI. What does that do? Oh, it looks if the user has, oh, that makes sense. So the users, we didn't set up this user to have AI access via another group membership. So to do that, I'm just going to look at this other code. I already wrote a test just like this, and I'm just going to copy that line that I used before, which is, and again, we're stubbing. So like, is this a bad idea? Maybe, but we're actually about to throw away this test anyway. So I don't feel too bad about it. Because we're just trying to make sure that we're actually doing the right thing. I think this should pass now. Fingers crossed. Oh, we don't have a current user. We have a user. Yeah, are you finding there aren't that many issues that are like very approachable in the backlog so far?
Um, kind of, yeah.
Okay,
But
that's really good to know. You can create more for sure.
yeah, I think that would be good, especially since it's not just me. We have a bunch of new people. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And there are like, I could probably dig up some that already exist in somewhere in GitLab issues. Like there are uh not easy wins, but like there are changes that need to be made that are like test coverage, refactors, like smaller things that could be really helpful we've been putting off. So it's also that would actually be really a good thing to take care of anyway.
oh, nice. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Cool. Okay, so it expected this to be a success, but it was an error. And I thought that I would have um, oh, it's just any group with AI available. That's why I stubbed the wrong thing. It's looking at any group with AI available, and I was stubbing any group with AI chat available, which is a slightly different method. Hey, Leslie, we're cooking. Okay, so the reason that's passing is because it's using the new logic. Let me go back to the line I commented out. So now I would expect this test to fail, right? Because I've re-added the membership thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Great. Cool. Great. So, what do we want to do now? I guess maybe I'll restructure these tests really quickly. So I think I said before we're going to throw this test out. Maybe we should keep it, but we should nest it in here somehow. And resources, no. I think that's fine to keep it as is. Do you think this makes sense to leave it here, or should we move this around somewhere?
See. I think it makes sense how it is.
Okay. I'm also going to just remove, sorry, this is like a silly cleanup, but like the way permissions work in GitLab, they always cascade. So if you add a user as a developer to a group, you don't really need to add them to the child project anyway. And this project is within the group, so I'm just going to rerun this file, but I think that was an unnecessary line of test setup. Whee. And then I think next we should run all of the tests in all of these classes because I'm guessing there might be some other tests somewhere. Yeah, they passed. Okay. BER spec. I'm gonna run all the LLM services because those all inherit from base service, so they might have some tests that are looking at that membership piece.
Okay.
Running. Happening. I wish you could tell me like how long it predicts it would take. Oh, great. Yeah, passed. One thing I was gonna look at. Oh yeah, we already have user has no access, which is awesome. But the thing is, this actually says when user does not have access to AI features. Maybe we should add a quick thing here where we can say like context when user can view project. Well, never mind. I'm not going to worry about that because basically I was going to say, should we do a test for like the ability to read the resource or not, right? Like, can they view the issue project, whatever it is? But that all happens inside this authorizer class, right? There's not a read. Yeah, there's no read underscore like this on line 25 on the left. There's no other authorization check. And that happens through authorizer, but authorizer is being stubbed in these tests. So it's all a little like, it's all happening inside of there. Okay. And there's no membership check in here. Oh, there is membership check in here. Oh, actually, I was looking at this before and I wanted to ask your opinion on it. Okay, this is an interesting case. So we do check for membership here. And let's look at where container not allowed message shows up. So if the user does not have access to Duo features, which if we remember correctly, let's look in the global policy. I think it's Oh no, it's in group policy and project policy. So 705. So access Duo features would be true if you can read the group and you have Duo features enabled, which would be a setting on the group. So if that's not the case, this error, you get this container not allowed message. And then the container not allowed message has a different error message depending on whether you're a member of the group or project or not a member. So if you are a member, you get this error message. This feature is only allowed in groups or projects with this feature enabled. Otherwise, you get the not found message. Which I guess is saying it's like more opaque, right? It's not telling you that that project or group exists. It's just like, I can't show you that, but we're not doing a membership check anymore. So I'm trying to think, should we show these two different messages or not? Should we always show the message on line 60?
I guess so. Yeah, I'm not. So the reason that I do think they're split is because before there was a distinction, but now we're removing that, so it should be okay uh, to at least make it clear that that group or project exists. Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think what was happening is like people were going to like they were using the GitLab Duo through here, and then you can pull it up on any project, right? So it's hard. I don't have like any projects here I'm not a member of. But let's say I wasn't a member when I pulled it up and I tried to use it, it would tell me this. I'm not able to look at I'm not able to find what you're looking for. Whereas if I was a member, it would tell me like, hey, like Duo features aren't enabled for this project.
Yeah, I think that'll be
Okay.
because I mean they're looking at the project, so they know something about it. I guess if someone's really picky, they don't want people to know that they don't have AI features or something. But I don't know.
Yeah, like have they enabled it or not? I mean, the thing is, the way GitLab access control works is you would never be able to see any you'd never be able to see a project or a group unless it was like public, right? If you weren't a member, like only or internal, I guess internal. Do you know that it had the internal visibility? It's kind of a weird middle ground. You can't use it on GitLab.com, but on self-managed, you can have internal visibility, which means you have to be logged in to see the project or group. So any user can see it, but you have to be logged in. But we don't have that on GitLab.com, so it's kind of a weird edge case. You know what I'm going to do, actually, in the spirit of your previous comment about having some easier issues, I'm going to make an issue specifically for this because it's a small thing, but I think it could be tackled on its own, right? Like it's going to involve changing this one line of code and maybe deleting one of these and updating a few tests.
Yeah.
And it probably would be worth its just own quick conversation about, because there are security implications of showing certain error messages to non-members. So I just want to make sure, like rather than stuffing that into this MR, I think we can do its own thing. So,
Makes sense.
okay, I'll do that. So my two to-dos are make that issue and also find that recording of a previous backend pairing where we talked about code coverage because I learned a lot in that session and I think that would be helpful. And actually my third to do is to dig up some other issues that we've created for different maybe more accessible tasks for people who are newer to the team to tackle. So I can definitely do that.
Awesome, appreciate it. That would be super helpful to Juan and David. I think they want to do that as well, but it'll be really
Okay.
helpful.
Okay, and I'll ping them too and let them know that I'm doing that so that we don't double do the work. Cool. Well, I'm gonna push this. Thank you for working with me on this. This is good and something off my to-do list. And but now I have 3 more things on my to-do list, so it's actually counterproductive. No, it's good. It was good. Super fun. It was nice seeing you, Leslie.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much. Really
Okay.
appreciate it.
Okay. See you later.
All right, see ya.
Bye.